Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, back with another sublimation tutorial. It is the beginning of the year, which means that people are making all sorts of New Year's resolutions. Now, statistics say that we will give up on our resolutions, but I do have one that I have actually kept, and that is journaling. A few years ago, I decided I wanted to start journaling, mostly about business stuff, sort of to keep me on track with my goals, and I've actually kept up with that, and it's been super helpful in my business. So whether or not you want to journal for your own small business or in your personal life, today I'm going to be sharing how to make sublimation journals. Sublimation journals are a perfect beginner project, so if you are just starting out with sublimation, these are really easy to make. I'm going to be showing you 3 different styles here, and I think even if you haven't done a lot of sublimation, you should easily be able to make these. For this project, I have a fun bundle of flower sublimation files for you. You can find those in my craft library on my blog. It's heyletsmakestuff.com/library. On that page, you can request a password. Once you have the password, you can go ahead and log into my library. This file is sublimation file S22, and there are 2 ways to find it in my craft library. The first way is to scroll down a little bit and click the sublimation button. That will jump you down to the sublimation section on that page where you can find S22. The second is to use the control function on your computer. If you are on a PC, you can use Control F. If you're on a Mac, you can use Command F and then search for S22 and you'll be taken to the file. You'll see that there are a few links there. The first link is the download link for the zip. Just click on it and it will download to your hard drive. The second link is to the blog post for this video if you want to read more, and the third link is for this video. You can, of course, put whatever images you want on these sublimation notebooks. I just wanted to give you something in case you weren't sure where to start. Let's start by talking about the journals that we're going to use today. The 2 smaller journals I have here are both from Amazon, but I also wanted a larger option and I found this one on Etsy. I'll be linking to all of this down in the description so you can buy these journals for yourself. The first journal I have here is a coil bound journal. So it has the pages that are already in the coil binding, and then it has 2 covers that you can sublimate. The second journal I have here is a faux leather bound journal, and you're going to sublimate the cover as one piece. So I'll take it off here and you can see here that you can sublimate the whole cover as one piece. And then it has a bunch of pieces inside that we will assemble to make the journal. The third journal I have is much larger. This is the one from Etsy, and it's similar to the coil bound journal. However, it comes unbound. So I have all of my pages here. I've got, again, 2 sublimatable covers, and then I have this click binding, which we will learn how to use in a little bit. For this project, of course, you're going to need a sublimation printer. I'm using my Sawgrass SG1000. You can use whatever sublimation printer you have. The 2 smaller journals work really easily with a printer that only prints 8.5 by 11. However, if you want a full bleed image on this larger journal, you are going to need something that can print that 11 by 17 size. If you want to put a smaller image, however, on this larger journal, you can totally do that with a smaller printer. But for this project, I wanted that really big, bright, bold cover, so I am printing on that larger size. I'm also going to show you how to set up your files in Photoshop. Now, I understand not everybody has Photoshop. I do have a blog post about 12 different softwares you can use for sublimation. I just find Photoshop really easy for sizing files like this, but again, you can use whatever software you have. You're going to need a few other things for this project. You're going to need a couple sheets of butcher paper, you're going to need heat-resistant tape, and you're going to need a heat press. I'm using my nice big Walla press here. However, if you have a handheld press like a Cricut Easy Press, you can use that as well. When doing sublimation with an Easy Press, I do recommend getting a firmer mat underneath. The Easy Press mat is a little squishy and I just don't think it works quite as well, so I will go ahead and link to a wool mat in my product list so you can use that instead. I just think it works a little bit better. Let's start with the small coil bound journal. So that journal is 4.125 inches wide by 5.75 inches tall. So let's make this just a little bit larger than that. I'm going to make it 4.25 inches wide by 5.825 inches tall. This document is now slightly larger than my cover, and it will ensure that I don't have any white edges when I go to press my project. Next, we're going to go up to File, Place Embedded, and then we're going to navigate to the file we want to put on our journal. So you can see here that it adds the photo, but we do need to make it larger. So I'm going to use the handle at the top and the handle at the bottom to help fill our space. You can move it left and right if you'd like, just like that. You can also make it much bigger if you'd like. If you just want part of it, you can do that as well. I'm not going to do that this time, but it's an option. Then hit Enter to embed your image. And that's it. We can go ahead and print this file. So I'm going to use Command P on my Mac, Control P if you're on a PC to print. Because I have 2 covers, I'm actually going to change my copies to 2. And I'm using my Sawgrass, so I'm going to have Printer Manages Colors. If you are using a converted Epson, you may want to use Photoshop Manages Colors and use an ICC profile. I will go ahead and link to my video on that. Scroll all the way down and choose Emulsion Down. This will reverse your image, and then you can go ahead and click Print. I followed that same process to print all 3 of my journal covers. So I have 2 pages for the small journal. I have 1 wide page for that small leather-bound journal because we're gonna do it in one piece. And then I have 2 much larger prints for that large journal. My prints actually came out of my printer really wet. I think there's just a lot of ink in this particular design. So I went ahead and actually just set these underneath my press, just like that, for, I don't know, a minute each, just to allow that ink to fully dry before we press it to our journals. Let's start with the small coil-bound journal. I have both of my prints here, and I'm going to take the 2 covers, and I want to make sure that I have them facing the opposite direction. So if I have them both facing the same direction with the binding on the same side, when you go to put this on your journal, you're gonna end up having one of those sides be upside down. So you just wanna make sure that your bindings are opposite facing, just like this. Now you want to use a small amount of heat-resistant tape to secure your journal covers to the paper. Now I found that these particular journal covers really like to peel up the tape, so try not to use a ton of tape. You really don't need a lot, and I wouldn't press it down super hard. You don't want it to shift, but you also don't want to be ripping up that paper inside your journal. And you can see that I have that just tiny amount of overlap around my journal here, so that I know that I'm not going to get any white edges. That's it to set it up. I'm gonna put a piece of paper here on the bottom of my heat press to protect my pressing pad. And then you wanna flip it over so that your image is facing down and your sublimation cover is facing up. When I did this the first time, I actually had it the other way, and I'll show you that it didn't work quite as well. So I'm gonna put that in there. I'm gonna add another piece of paper on top. And then I have my heat press set to 365 degrees for 60 seconds. So I'm gonna go ahead and press both covers. When they come out, of course, they're gonna be hot, so just be careful. You're gonna wanna set something very heavy on them because this particular cover really likes to curl. So I'm gonna grab something heavy from over there, and I'm gonna pull them out of the press. I'm gonna let them cool completely before we remove the transfers from our covers. All right, let's peel back the transfer sheet here and reveal our images. You can see in the overhead view here, that turned out really beautifully. Now again, you don't want to peel up any of this paper, so just remove this tape from the back really carefully. Definitely ripped it the first time I did it, so I'm being very careful. And you can see I even had that underneath that heavy stack of books for a while, and it still curled a little bit. So let's do this other one here. Gorgeous. All right, so now we have the 2 covers to our notebook. I'll also say that I pressed these exactly the same way, and this one is a little bit lighter, and I'm honestly not sure why I pressed them exactly the same. This one turned out a little bit lighter. So I mentioned before that I put this upside down in my heat press the first time I tested it, and you can really see the difference here in the overhead view. This one here is the one that I did backwards, and it did not nearly get as bright and vibrant as the ones over here. Now it's time to add our covers to our notebook. And I have to say, I do not like this process. I have 2 other styles here, which I like more than this one, especially because this one really kind of requires you to sort of manipulate these little coils here. And by the end, my hands are killing me. So I am gonna do it. I'm gonna time myself just so you know how long this might take. You will probably be faster than me, but I just wanna let you know that this is not as easy of a process as maybe some other people make it look on the internet. A minute and a half to get these coils on, and I was kind of trying to rush, and you can see that I kind of bent the coils a little bit more than I probably needed to. But yeah, so that's how you get the front cover on. You're gonna do the back cover in the same way. You're just gonna put it on upside down. So you're gonna put it on basically this way so that you can flip it around to the back. All right, I added the back cover on backwards, and then when I flip it over, that means that I have both sides of my notebook done. Let's talk about the pros and cons of this little notebook. This was the cheapest notebook that I was able to purchase. It was $4 for each notebook. I bought a pack of 3, and it really does sublimate nicely. Again, I'm not sure why the front is not quite as vibrant as the back. I sublimated them exactly the same, and that's about all I really like about these notebooks. I do not particularly like this coil binding. I find it really difficult to assemble. I don't like that the interior pages here have a very yellow cast. So if I put it in the overhead view here and just compare it to something that's more white, you can really see that yellow cast to the pages. And personally, I'm just not a fan of this size. I mean, if you like small notebooks, go for it. I just like much bigger notebooks because I have a lot of thoughts. And so I don't like writing in something quite this small. The listing for these says that they are A5 size, which is more closer to 6 inches tall. So I do feel like I was expecting something that was a little bit larger than this. And so when I got this one, I was like, oh, those are smaller than I was expecting. However, if you like a smaller notebook, then these will probably be a perfect size for you. I also don't love how these covers are really prone to curling. So you can see here in the overhead view that even though I had it stacked under those books, I still have quite a curve in my cover here. So I just don't love these notebooks. I mean, they sublimate really nicely, but overall, I'm just not a huge fan. All right, notebook number 2 is this faux leather bound notebook. And there are a couple important things to note here. So you're gonna find this small piece of cardboard inside your notebook. Do not throw this away because this actually goes in the center of your notebook while you're pressing to actually give some support to the center of this journal, which means that when you press, you're not gonna end up with a faded spine. So I have my image here, and like I mentioned before, we printed this one in just one image versus 2 different covers. I'm gonna place my image on here, and again, I made it just slightly larger than my notebook cover so I wouldn't have any white edges. Just gonna do a little taping here to keep it secure. I'm gonna tape in the center here. That way, if it does pull up any of the cardboard, it's pulling up on this middle piece, which we're gonna recycle at the end. We're gonna press this one at the exact same time and temperature as the last one, 365 degrees for 60 seconds. So let's go ahead and add that butcher paper to the bottom of the heat press. Then we are gonna, again, flip this over. You wanna make sure everything stays in place. We're gonna flip it over, just like that. We're gonna add one more sheet of butcher paper to protect our press. I'm gonna go ahead and press for 60 seconds. For this one, I also did set it under something heavy to let it cool. I'm not sure it's quite as important with this one, but after that first one, I kind of made the point to do that. So one thing to note here is that your butcher paper is going to stick. And that's because the adhesive that holds on this faux leather cover sort of ends up bleeding out and holding on to this paper. Kind of annoying. It's not gonna be so bad, but you can see here that it really got stuck there. So I ended up pulling a little bit of my notebook up here. You can see in the overhead view, pulling it up. But that's okay because we are gonna cover that with the pages of our notebook. So let's go ahead and peel this up and see how we did. Oh my goodness, gorgeous. I really like how this sublimates. Now again, you can take out that piece from the center and you can recycle this. That really did turn out just beautifully. So let's flip it over. And now we can assemble our notebook. You can decide which side is the front and which is the back. I think this side is gonna be my front. Yeah, I think this is gonna be my front. And now we have a couple different pieces here. We have our actual notebook pages. So you wanna make sure that your bookmark is at the top, right? So you want your bookmark at the top here. Just make sure you're putting it in correctly. And then you have 2 adhesive sheets. So these are a bit difficult to peel up, but you can get one of the sides off. So this is like a double-sided adhesive. So I'm gonna pull the first side up, leaving me with the backing sheet and a very sticky piece here. So with the very sticky piece, I'm going to put it on the inside of the cover as straight as I can. I feel like I'm only kind of medium good at that. And then you can peel back the second side here, leaving the adhesive on the book. So what I did to make sure I got it right, I kind of folded this around so I would make sure I was sort of in the center, just like that. And then press. And then you'll do the same on the other side. Place it on the journal, just like this. And then peel back the other side, just like that. And you can wrap your cover around and press, just like that. Let's talk pros and cons for this one. Again, it really sublimates beautifully. I love that it sublimates the spine as well. It's just a really nice sublimation, look here. I like that it comes with this little bookmark. I will say when you open it up, it gets very cracky as it kind of reworks that adhesive that you have in there. I don't love that. I also just, for me, don't love bound journals like this. I prefer like spiral bound journals because I want to be able to open my journal all the way up without having to hold it with my hand to write in a journal. If you like leather bound journals, then this will work, but that's just my personal preference. These ended up being about $5.50 each, so not terribly expensive. I do have a couple cons. One is that sort of cracking noise as the adhesive sort of moves around. It makes me feel like it won't stay adhered forever. Another thing I don't like is no matter how much I tried on all of these that I've made so far, I cannot quite get these to be centered when I press that second page. I feel like it's just not quite, the book itself is not quite centered within the cover. And again, this one said it was A5 size, which should put it closer to 6 inches. It's not, so a little annoyed with the fact that it was smaller than I was expecting it to be. But overall, I mean, I like this one a lot better than the little spiral bound guy. All right, now we are on to our last journal. And like I said, I used my larger 11 by 17 paper to do this. You won't be able to do this with just an 8.5 by 11 printer. And again, just like we did with that first notebook, we want to make sure that on our 2 pieces of paper that we place our bindings opposite to one another. That way your flowers will not be upside down. You could, if you want, not reverse one of these and then they would be a perfect mirror of each other. I don't really mind as much. I just don't want the flowers upside down. So let's go ahead and add a few pieces of tape here. I found these to be a little bit higher quality than the small one here, so it didn't really pull up any of the backing of the covers here, which was nice. Again, you can see that I've made these prints just slightly larger than my actual notebook covers. That will keep me from having that white edge. And we're gonna press this one in the exact same way, 365 degrees for 60 seconds. I'm gonna press these covers one at a time, and then again, I'm gonna put it under something heavy so that they don't curl. Okay, let's reveal our final journal covers and then we can assemble our last journal. Flip this over here. I mean, truly, that just looks so good. Let me peel this tape off the back. Now we can assemble our notebook. So we want to flip over the back cover and align it with the holes in our pages here, and then add the front cover, just like that. And now we can add our comb. And at first I was like, oh, this is probably gonna be very difficult to get this to align with all the holes. Honestly, it really was not that bad. Let's see if I can do it nice and easily again. I mean, that was really quick. Now you just have to pinch these little loops together. So I've got it here and I'm just gonna start on one end and they click. Can you hear them clicking? And just work your way all the way down and click all of the little loops together. And that's it for that binding. I like this so much more than I like this. Let's talk about the pros and cons of this big guy. As far as pros go, I really like this size. I like having this much room to write. That's personal preference, but I really do like a larger notebook. The other thing I really like is this click binding. I feel like it goes in so much better. It feels so much sturdier. I just like it so much more than this coil binding. And again, just like the other two, this sublimates beautifully. These colors are so bright, honestly, this looks like it came out of a store. It looks really good. This one is also about $8 per notebook, so it is a little bit more expensive. But when you compare it with this little guy here, this one's $4, this one's $8, and you basically get 4 times the amount of writing room in the larger one for only double the price. And my other con is that you can't get it from Amazon. And I know a lot of my viewers like to shop at Amazon. You can only find these sort of smaller sublimation notebooks on Amazon. I didn't find anything that I liked that was this larger size. So I did get this one off Etsy and she shipped it pretty quickly. It got here quickly, probably not as fast as Amazon, but I didn't have to wait that long. So that's how you make 3 types of sublimation notebooks or journals. If you have any questions about making any of these or any other types of sublimation projects, of course, leave those in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, of course, I would appreciate a like. Follow my channel for more sublimation, Cricut, and laser content. I'll see you next week.